Here with Dr. James B. Crooks, author, historian, and we're going to talk about his just released book, Jacksonville, the Consolidated Story from Civil Rights to the Jaguars. Welcome, Jim. How are you? It's so good of you to be with us, and I want to start by just letting people know that you're a professor emeritus of history from University of North Florida. Did I say that right?
Correct. And
goodness, this is certainly not your first book exploring our city and our city's government. You also wrote Jacksonville After the Fire, 1901 to 1919, and You South City. Did I kind of inverse that title?
No, yes, fine.
And so you've contributed in such a major way to the body of knowledge of Jacksonville history, and I want to thank you for that. Very excited about your new publication. Tell me why you decided to write this book.
There's a story behind that. This is back in the mid-1987, and Tommy Hazzuri just gotten elected mayor, and there were great hopes among liberal Democrats particularly that Tommy would be a great mayor. And so I thought, well, I remember when Arthur Schlesinger Jr. was historian in residence for John F. Kennedy, and if Tommy could really do a great job, and I could be historian in residence for the mayor of Jacksonville, we could write a book after he was done and put Jacksonville on the map. So I went to the university president, we went to Tommy, and he agreed to it. I didn't have quite the same job as Schlesinger, and Tommy's term was only one, and as I got into it, I began to think, well, let's expand it. Let's expand it to the whole consolidation history from the 1960s when the idea first germinated up until through Ed Austin's administration. And so it just by a natural process grew to cover the whole time period.
And you actually discovered papers sort of stashed at what is now we consider our old City Hall, our 1960s City Hall, in the garage area. And can you tell me about that? Because to anybody who loves history as I do and you do, that's just the mother lode, and I hope it was the mother lode.
It was a mother lode. Dwayne Atkinson, who works in public information office, wonderful person, called me one day and said, I found something you might be interested in. So I came down to the old City Hall on the river, and we went down into the parking garage and up into the annex, or up into the upper level, and there's this extraordinary collection of about 40 file cabinets just buried away. They've been there for years and years and years, and we started to poke through it, and I recognized papers from Hayden Burns' administration and Tansler and Godbold and so forth, and I said, this is wonderful. I wonder if we could arrange to look at this. And so we got permission from Lex Hester, the chief administrative officer. This was during Hazzuri's successor, Ed Austin's administration. We got permission from Lex, and I almost had an office on I guess it was the 7th floor where PIO was, and I spent probably a year going through the papers. We'd lug a tray of papers every day that were filthy dirty. We'd wash, and it was an experience.
Well, you know, I didn't realize you were doing this, and I was right on your heels just looking at it, and it was an unbelievable assortment of items, and just so happy. I was looking primarily at photographs, some of the documents, and I'm so happy someone spent a year of their life just sorting through that, let alone what other sources and resources you used for this book. Well, in the book, you have focused largely on 4 mayors, but certainly those are not the only mayors discussed. You really start pre-consolidation with Lou Ritter and Hayden Burns, and you bring everybody up to date, and then you focus on the 4 mayors who followed those 2 men. But let's start for just a minute with Lou Ritter and Hayden Burns. And there are probably a lot of people viewing tonight who really have never heard of these 2 men. Others of us have lived through it. Tell a little bit about those administrations and what led up to consolidation.
Okay. Both of the men were remarkable in their own ways. Lou's still alive, as you know. When Hayden Burns came to office in the late 1940s, shortly after World War II, downtown was really a mess. The wharves along the river were rat-infested and deteriorating. There had been no new buildings built downtown in almost 20 years, and downtown was not in good shape at all. And Burns, to his credit, was the first mayor of the modern era since World War II to want to revitalize downtown. And he started at the Main Street Bridge area to clear away the rotting, deteriorating wharves, built the first parking lots, but went on to, beyond that, to build City Hall, to build what is now the Times Union Center for Performing Arts, the then Civic Auditorium, and
Hayden's Library was built. Well,
at the very end of his time.
Downtown library.
The Wolfson Baseball Park and the old Coliseum, which is now gone. And he went beyond that, and he was a great salesman. And he recruited CSX, his predecessor, the Atlantic Coastline Railroad, to move their headquarters from Wilmington to Jacksonville. And he persuaded, with the help of the chamber, the state legislature to change the insurance law for the state, and then recruited Prudential to come in to build its regional home office. And other insurance companies followed, so that Jacksonville became known as the Hartford of the South. And then there's a Sears Roebuck, remember downtown where the Omni Hotel now is?
Absolutely, I'm a native.
The whole area along the north bank of the river was redone during the Hayden Burns administration. Plus, there were lots of other buildings as well. So he really revitalized, was a spark plug in revitalizing downtown. He was elected governor in 1965 and was replaced by Lou Ritter, who had been on the city commission. And Lou was mayor only for 2 years, but in his short period of time, he shifted the focus from to improve the quality of life in Jacksonville. He put in housing standards. He was the first to appoint African Americans to serve on city boards. He became concerned about the environmental condition, particularly the St. Johns River, which was badly polluted. And he worked with the federal government on the anti-poverty program. And the Kennedy Center and there's a center on the west side, whose name will come to me in a minute, were the first in-city, model city type programs that one of the first in the South and one of the first in the nation that Lou Ritter arranged to get started. So he was an energizing force for improving the quality of life, particularly for the working class and poor residents of the community.
Progressive in a way a lot of people never really realized, since he only served 2 years as mayor. And then these events that brought about the consolidated government, and there were numerous events, I know.
These were taking place parallel to what Ritter was trying to do. Concern about the inability of the county to provide adequate governance. I mean, at this period of time, the city was very much constricted from what it is now. It was something like 24 square miles, where it's 840 square miles now. And if those of you are familiar with Emerson Street on the south side, that was pretty much the southern border of Jacksonville. Everything south of Emerson, the whole Mandarin, Lakewood, Arlington area were in the county and not in the city. And there was rapid growth in the county, but the county was unable, due to governmental restrictions, to provide the roads, the schools, the police and fire and parks and everything that water, sewer, garbage that a city needs. And so one of the big problems was how do you serve these suburbanites who are flocking to Duval County? There were more people living in Duval County than in the city. On top of that, you have within the city, of course, a very expensive, quite corrupt government that people didn't want anymore. On top of that, you had real problems in the environment. The St. Johns River was heavily polluted. You had real problems in the school system, which had been disaccredited. And there were real problems in race relations in this very deep South segregated city. So all these things kind of came to a head in the mid-60s, and the chamber sparked the consolidation effort to come up with a solution to make government work in Jacksonville, Duval County. And the document they produced, the new charter in 1967, became the foundation for what we have today, a city that serves the entire region and serves it much better than the old city-county separate in the 1960s.
And you know what I'm going to do now, because we don't have much time left, and we've talked so much about the pre-consolidation era. I like to show, first of all, a picture of the city hall where all the mayors you talk about did their time. And this is, of course, the 1960s City Hall. And Burns Builders, along with those other projects you talked about, were responsible for that building effort in downtown Jacksonville. And we just have a little time, and we're going to focus the rest of our time on the mayors who you really focus on in this book. Four mayors, Hans Tanzler, Jake Godbold, Tommy Azuri, and Ed Austin. And in fact, we have a picture of them that we might show too, or at least all of them except Hans. This picture is a real coup to get all those mayors together at one time, and actually John Delaney's thrown in that group, but he's not really focused on in this book. So you see the mayors there, everyone but Hans Tanzler. There's no existing picture of all living mayors together that I know of. Actually, Lou Ritter's in that picture as well.
Yes, yes, indeed.
And so I just want to quickly mention, let's look at each administration and their greatest challenge, Jim, in the few minutes we have left. We'll start with Hans Tanzler.
Hans' greatest challenge, excuse me, was to make consolidation work. And he brought in Lex Hester as his chief administrative officer, and they literally put two governments into one and made it the most efficient, effective, cost-effective government we've ever had. And in the process, he put it to working on our environmental problems, cleaning up the St. Johns River, which was a major, major accomplishment. He began planning downtown development in the whole area out about by the community college from State and Union Street out to the Shands Hospital. That whole area along Clutho Park and all that was the beginning of development, urban development downtown. Tanzler was responsible for that, and he also was responsible for in creating the Human Rights Commission. You called the Community Relations Commission back then, to work to improve race relations in the city. So he focused on all three major problems confronting